In 2025, the Jacksonville Jaguars will encounter some speed bumps. I'm going to tell you where those bumps are and how they can overcome it. We'll do it today here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That is a fact. It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where we give you the biggest stories in season and off season of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And today what we're going to do is talk about potential speed bumps that the Jaguars might encounter or will encounter as we approach training camp. We're getting ready for training camp, but we're also going to temper your expectations. We're going to calibrate them so that they sit there where they're supposed to be. All right, today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Shout out to the everydayers who join us each and every day. And also, if you're a newcomer, we welcome you. Hopefully, you'll be an everydayer as well. We are wherever you get your podcast, man. Whether you watch or listen, you can find us there. Make sure you tap in and do not miss an episode. All right, so here's what we're going to do. At the end of the show, I'm going to give you the biggest weapon to counter the speed bumps that are going to come the Jaguars' way. And in the middle, I'm going to tell you the biggest challenges that they face. But first, I got to tell you they won't go undefeated. And this is where we're going to start the show at the very top. They're not going to go undefeated. And I know everybody's like, wait, we know that. We know they ain't going undefeated. Nobody said they're going undefeated. But listen, your expectations are through the roof, right? So if you look at it in a vacuum, you understand that there's only been one team to go undefeated. But your expectations for the season usually is rooted, if you're a fan, it's rooted in your enthusiasm, right? And your hope for the season. So I can't go game by game and tell you the games that they're going to win and going to lose. Nobody can predict that. If I did, FanDuel would love me because that means that I would be able to tell you or tell them which games would be right? But you can look at your team with an objective eye and realize that they're built a certain way. Now, mind you, none of us know what this is really going to look like because it's pretty much all new stuff. But we can still come to the conclusion that it's going to look a certain way and it's going to feel a certain way. And even with that, you're going to have your weeks where there's growing pains, right? I mean, the quintessential team to point to as far as excellence is the Kansas City Chiefs, who have been to 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls and have won 3 of them. By the way, somebody said that their window, I think it was Acho, he said that the Chiefs are headed for something like destructive. I'm thinking like, okay, yeah, but dude, you act like they haven't been to 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls. So it's funny how when you start getting good, expectations change a little bit. But with the Jaguars, they haven't been good. So expectations and hope is always at a sky high, right? So the thing is the reality of the situation is you're not going to win every game. In fact, you're going to probably lose some games in a way that makes you feel really, really bad on Sunday night, Monday morning. It just happens. That is the NFL. That is the formula. But we're looking from a macro perspective. That's big picture. The Jaguar fans just want to be mentioned in the same breath as a contender for the next decade. New stadium coming 2028. It's going to be brand new. Jaguar fans we want to be in the neighborhood. We want to be a part of that discussion, right? Getting there means a lot of good things have to happen for this football team and stuff off the field. Staying there once you get there, which is a whole nother thing, it's hard. Maintaining that relevance, maintaining that ability to be in contention for a championship or put yourself in it's hard to do. The Jaguars have never done it. Even when they flashed, the Jaguars have been to 3 AFC championship games. And people don't realize that. They have. And each time they went, it seems like right after that, they didn't even make the playoffs. So right after that, they fell back out. So you have to be in the neighborhood first. You can't buy a house if you ain't driving through the neighborhood. So you have to be in the neighborhood first. After you're in the neighborhood, you actually got to win something. Case in point, the San Francisco 49ers. People say, yeah, they've been in the neighborhood the last decade. The 49ers have been to 2 Super Bowls. Do you realize in 8 years, Kyle Shanahan has missed the playoffs 4 times? Yeah. It is very, very difficult to get to the point where you're hanging around the situation for a championship. Tony Dungy and the Colts did it. And they got one. Sean Payton and his Saints, they did it, and they got one. Pete Carroll, of course, got one when he was with the coach with the Seattle Seahawks. It's very, very hard. It is very, very hard to put yourself in that area first and then to win. So the Jaguars are going to have challenges this year. I'm going to go through this schedule, and I'm going to point out, because it is the 4th of July, I'm going to point out the 4 biggest challenges and things that they have to overcome. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to give you the 2 or 3 big reasons why they can overcome those challenges to try to get to the point where they're just in the neighborhood. And that's where I just want to be in the neighborhood. You can't just come on here and say, yeah, we're going to win the Super Bowl and try to gaslight people and gas them up. But what we are going to do is say, this is how you get to that neighborhood. And when you get to the neighborhood, these are the challenges you're going to face. And this is the weaponry you have to overcome those challenges. So we'll make sure we get to that today for you. We'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Listen, we've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. That's a good thing. And you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of doing all the hard work and trying to position yourself to get tickets, let Game Time do the work for you. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, and it's always guaranteed. All right, moving and grooving here on Locked On Jaguars. Happy Independence Day to all of you guys that are out there listening. And if you listen to this podcast or watch this podcast at a later date, well, happy whatever day that is to you also. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. And it just hit me. I was having a conversation with some friends last night as I was celebrating my birthday. And guys, I can't ever dodge Jaguar questions, right? So guys are like, what do you think they're going to do? What do you think they're going to do? They got to face this. And I started to listen, and I'm like, the expectation shouldn't be that they win every game. But that doesn't mean that I can't go through the games one by one and tell you the ones that are going to be the most challenging, right? There's some games that they're going to win that you don't think they should win, or the bettors won't think that they can win. But then there'll be games that they win or lose that you say, how did they lose that game? Like there's a chance they're going to play the Colts and the Titans combined 4 times. There's a chance they're going to lose one of those games. It's hard to kind of put your finger on it right now, but they should beat both of those teams, but sometimes they won't. It's just a simple fact. And the NFL is that way. Teams show up and show out sometimes. So as we go through the schedule, even though I think they should be favored against the Titans and the Colts when they play both times, and of course, we'll see how that all works out based on how the season starts. Week 1 for the Jaguars. There's an up-and-coming team, the Carolina Panthers. The Jaguars, they're at home. But the thing is Carolina thinks that this is their hope and optimism is on how they started out strong last year. So we got to make sure that we don't come out here sleeping on those Carolina Panthers. And by the way, there's a little bit of connection because people keep giving Liam Cohen so much credit for Baker Mayfield. No, Dave Canales started that process with Baker Mayfield before he got the job at Carolina. So that's a good game. That's a good opening game. Then they go to Cincinnati. And as much as on my Locked On NFL show, we've beaten up on the Bengals for the way that they have handled the all season. They are still a very explosive team with a great quarterback and a couple of really, really good wide receivers and some spot players. When you look on their roster, that's a hard game. That's a hard game in the NFL. But here in week 3 is where I want to reside for a minute. I'm going to park it at week 3. The Houston Texans are a problem. And we can make this all about CJ Stroud and their offensive line, but you have to also pay attention to the fact that they have a very, very good defensive line and a very good secondary. This is the challenge for the Jaguars. And this is one of the teams I'll talk about in segment 3. The challenge for the Jaguars against the Houston Texans is going to be very, very interesting. And it has a lot to do with Travis Hunter. Well, Travis Hunter is a part of it, and I want to explain that later. I don't want to speedball past it, but I got to let you know that the Houston Texans is one of those teams that I'm sitting there talking about. And plus, I think either the Jaguars or the Texans are going to win the AFC South. So it'll come down to that. Going out west to play the 49ers, a team that schemes everybody up. And if you ain't sound in what you're doing, you're going to get embarrassed. We know that. We've seen it before. Week 4, that's a big game for the Jacksonville Jaguars because the 49ers are trying to hold on in that little window that they have, the one I just talked about that led them to 2 Super Bowls in the last 8 years. But we also have to acknowledge the fact that 4 of the last 8 years, they didn't even make the playoffs. So week 5 at home on a Monday night against Kansas City, that's going to be the game that everybody talks about, obviously. And for obviously, the standard is Patrick Mahomes. That is a game that the Jaguars just can't let them hang around, because if they hang around, that winning pedigree will show up, and it'll show up late. You got to if you're going to beat them, just beat them. Do not let them hang around. Do not let them dictate pace and all of that stuff. The Kansas City Chiefs, that's a huge game. Seattle is a very, very winnable game for the Jacksonville Jaguars. However, you still just have to be careful that this is the NFL. I think if there's one game outside of the Colts or Titans that I absolutely expect the Jaguars to win easily, that is Seattle. The LA Rams, that is a huge, huge game for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It'll be on NFL Network. Obviously, that's the London game, right? Look, it's always hard to go overseas. It's always hard when you're playing. It's a quote-unquote home game, but it's in London. It's always different when you're playing that early and all of that stuff. But that also is a very, very big game for the Jacksonville Jaguars, because that's a very good team. Maybe one of the best teams, them and the Chiefs, probably the 2 best teams they'll play all season. At the Raiders in week 9, I expect the Jaguars to be able to win that game. But by then, we'll know exactly who they are, and we can judge that. And then you can look at the Ashton Genty situation. He's one of the guys that people think can be Rookie of the Year along with Travis Hunter. So I think that's interesting. Week 10, we're right back to Houston. We'll get to them in a minute. The Los Angeles Chargers come to Jacksonville. We remember 27-0 and came back and beat them. That to me is going to be the Justin Herbert versus Trevor Lawrence game, because people give Justin Herbert a whole bunch more credit and a whole bunch more grace than they do Trevor. So that's a game that we really also have to watch and see if at least by that time, by week 11, we're still feeling good about the team. At Arizona, I think that's a trap game, because Arizona is a sneaky, I'm not going to say good team, but they're a sneaky team that has some good parts about them, and they can beat you up a little bit. So we got to really, really watch them. Now we get to the week 13. We ain't mentioned the Colts or the Titans yet, because we got, in those last 5 weeks, we got both of them twice. Tennessee, Indianapolis, you already know how I feel about that. And then they got the Jets. Very, very winnable situation. Right there in the middle, they got a hard game in Denver. There's another game where you can see where it doesn't go real well. A team that plays really, really good defense, coached by a very, very good coach. And then the whole mile high thing and the whole atmosphere, that could be a little bit of a problematic game. But then you close the year with both the Colts and the Titans all over again. So now that I've mentioned the doom and gloom of this schedule, and it sounds like, I'm playing with scared money, I'm going to tell you the things that can happen for the Jaguars to overcome some of those big challenges. And I'm going to tell you why I think the Texans, other than the fact that they won the division the last couple of years, I'm going to tell you why I think the Texans is really going to be a mirror moment for the Jaguars as we get into 2025 NFL season. I'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, so I just went through the schedule game by game, right? Happy Independence Day also. I went through the schedule game by game, and I talked about the games that I think could be tough and for what reasons. Trap games, really, really good opponents. There's some things the Jaguars can do to overcome those. First, I got to tell you why I think the Houston Texans are a real big challenge. One, I think they're very good. Two, they addressed that offensive line in the offseason, and they changed offensive coordinators to help their quarterback. Kudos to them. I wish the Jaguars would have done that a long time ago, but here we are. The thing that Houston is strong, and they're going to challenge the Jaguars where the Jaguars seemingly either think they have a weakness that they have fixed or a strength. And what I mean by that is this. The Jaguars' offensive line, they signed 4 people. They drafted Wyatt Millum out of West Virginia. So they got 5 new offensive linemen that are all going to make the team. And it's very, very important. They want to run the ball. They want to establish dominance. They want to be able to protect their quarterback. Houston, their strength to me is their edge rushers with Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter. And to supplement that strength, they also have Derek Stingley. They have the young kid out of Georgia over playing the other side on the other corner. And then they've addressed the safety position as well. I believe Houston, their strength on defense matches up with the Jaguars' strength on offense, or what they perceive to be something that they fixed on the offensive line and with those receivers. If Houston can guard the Jaguars players one-on-one, Brian Thomas Jr., Diami Brown, Travis Hunter, that can negate something that we all believe is a big advantage for Jacksonville, and that is being able to guard them one-on-one on the outside. That means Trevor has to play better. That means the offensive line has to play better. That means the running game has to be going. Houston is going to be the team that absolutely challenges the Jaguars based on what they want to be and who they are, who they think they are, and who they used to be, and to see if they're still that thing. Because Houston has, and the Jaguars have played very well against the Texans. Even under Doug Peterson, they played very, very well. Trevor, in my opinion, had the best game he's ever had against those Houston Texans. We got to see if that is going to be the same with this team moving forward. Now, they got to be able to handle the Chiefs and the Rams because those are nationally televised games. I think I want them to win, but I'm more intent on them just playing well. How can they do it? What are the biggest things that the Jaguars can do to make sure that they're very, very competitive in those games and they don't get whitewashed? Here's how you do it. That defensive line, and I'm glad I was finally able to get to the point. So much talk about the offensive line, and rightfully so, because I have been beating on them for years, right? The defensive line was a bit of a disappointment last year. Was it all Ryan Nielsen, or was it not? Apparently, based on the draft and based on free agency, they believe, even though they added a couple of pieces, they added Ogba, they brought back DeJuan Smoot, they've added the veteran presence behind those edge rushers. They must really, really love their interior on the defensive line because they didn't address that at all. Mason Smith, Eric Armstead, Devon Hamilton, Jordan Jefferson. I think there are a lot of people that really, really like Jordan Jefferson way more than a lot of fans realize. Those are the guys that are going to have to step up. I believe that defensive line, the ability to stop the run and the ability for them to get after the quarterback and cause the quarterback some problems and issues, is going to be the key. Why? Because they have to get people off the field on third down. You got to get people off the field on third down, whether it be with sacks, pressures, big plays, long down and distance situations because guys are jumping on and off sides, all of that. The defensive line for the Jaguars is going to be the big weapon to me that counters all of the challenges that they may have from these other teams, whether it be the Rams. Imagine now, look, I said the Rams and the Chiefs are the two games. You got to get Mahomes on the ground. You got to make him just don't let him get comfortable. And then with Matthew Stafford, it sounds like it'll be a pretty easy thing to make sure if you can get pressure on Matthew Stafford, then you really eliminate his ability. So that's why even in the toughest games, and CJ Stroud, he ain't no runner. The toughest games, the toughest team, which is the Texans, and the two toughest games are games that the Jaguars have a chance to really, really be disruptive against those teams. And the reason why is because of their defensive line. I think it's the one unit that we haven't talked about or discussed enough. And I'm guilty of it as well. You kind of assume that they're going to be all right. Everybody thought they were going to take Mason Graham, and we're glad they didn't take Mason Graham and they went up and got Travis Hunter. That you have to give Trevor Lawrence the ball back. You have to give him more and more chances with those fast receivers. And the way you do that is the defensive line has to be really, really good and play really, really well in this offseason. I mean, in the coming season. I think the brass, they obviously have confidence in those guys because they didn't do a whole bunch of addressing on that defensive line. And the fact that we haven't really talked about the defensive line as much, we talk about the secondary and the offensive line and Trevor and Travis Hunter and where he's going to play and where he's not going to play. We have to really dial in and focus on that defensive line. The defensive line for the Jacksonville Jaguars this year is going to be huge when it comes to determining how far they go and their success. It really, really will. I think the offensive line is going to, like Leon Cersei told me, he said, I just want a stalemate, bro. We don't have to be dominant. We just have to win sometimes. The line on offense didn't win at all. I think the way that they addressed it in the offseason will at least give them a chance to win more. The defensive line, which hasn't been addressed, they just have to, it sounds like they're saying, look, those guys can play. They just have bad coaching, or they were asked to do some things that they shouldn't do. No defensive linemen outside of the two edge rushers that I mentioned. They haven't really addressed the edge rush position, but I still believe it's a critical area for the team that has to be dealt with. And they're either going to show you that they're worth it or they're going to show you that they're not. The faith that the Jaguars brass has in the defensive line tells me an awful lot. They saw it in film study. They had a chance to address it, but they didn't. That means they think they have the guys that are capable of making this football team what we all think it should be. And if you want to know more about the Jags and you want to know more about any NFL team, make sure you check out Locked On NFL Scouting, because Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino, they know the NFL rosters better than anybody, and they'll make you a smarter fan as you head into the 2025 season. All right. Happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. Love you guys. Thank you for being here and spending time with us. We got you under 25 minutes today. So enjoy the rest of your day, the time with your family. Don't take any of that for granted. And we thank you and appreciate you here on Locked On Jaguars. Y'all take care.